You're listening to the Anilujah podcast, where faith and animation collide. Each episode will discuss the various topics in animated movies and TV shows, while also sharing our thoughts and opinions as they relate to faith and spirituality. Get ready to raise a hallelujah. It's time for Anilujah.
And you're locked into the Anilujah podcast. My name is Josh, and back from seeing Handel's Messiah this last week is my wife, Rebecca.
Hello, everybody.
So with Handel's Messiah, again, it was an appropriate thing to see on Easter weekend. It's the first time I've ever attended like a quote-unquote, would they consider it an opera?
Yes.
Or more like just
I don't know, actually.
Or more just like a chorus orchestral kind of like composition?
I don't know. Honestly, that's a good question. I think it's more of a choral performance with, I'm sure there's a special name. My sister would be able to know because, I mean, this is what she does. So I don't know.
And she was actually in it. She was cast in the chorus for Handel's Messiah.
Yep.
And I mean, as far as like what I consider to be the peak and the pinnacle of success, might be different from others, but performing at the Skrillex in Nashville, I mean, that's pretty epic.
That's really cool. Yeah. And that was a volunteer basis to be in the choir. I don't know about the orchestra. It wasn't a full orchestra. But yeah, I know the choir was voluntary, which is impressive. They spent quite a long time practicing everything, and man, it was very impressive. If you've never heard Handel's Messiah, I would definitely recommend it.
And be prepared to sit for about 2 hours and 40 minutes. It's a long one.
Well, and they didn't even perform all of it.
Oh yeah, your sister told us that they skipped a few of the things.
They did. They left out some of the songs, which I was like, wow, really? And it was still 2 hours and 40 minutes. It was long. It was really long.
Yeah. Well, Handel's Messiah aside, we are really excited because we had another guest on our podcast.
Woohoo!
It was just a couple weeks ago. Didn't we have the guest? Because it was 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. Yes, it was.
All right. Well, Rebecca, do you want to go ahead and introduce our guest?
Yes. So today we have Mason McKenney, and he is with us. He's a webtoon artist, and we're really excited to have him on board, and a fellow anime lover, of course.
Oh, hey. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Well, thank you for making the time to be on with us, and really excited to have our audience to get to know you better. And Mason, it's great to have you with us today, and especially because you're what would you describe yourself as? A animator, graphic designer? What would you describe what you do?
I'm just a general overall creative. I'm a writer, an artist. Well, yeah, a writer, an illustrator, currently a game developer right now.
Oh, that's cool.
I do a lot of things. Maybe I can get into music again, but right now, just writing and illustrating is the two main things that I do.
Wonderful. And I've seen your YouTube channel as well. It looks like you do a lot of what do you call, like quick draw, or show your like animation process on there, and have some promos for your current work.
Oh yeah, that was content that I decided to upload from my TikTok, because I tried doing that for a while, and I had a goal of making 100 TikTok videos, but I realized that I don't think I have enough ideas for 100 videos, so I'm gonna get back on that when I do.
Nice. I mean, TikTok is a hard game for some, and for a lot of people actually. I mean, I don't know if we would ever venture out to the TikTok game. It's just because it started as like just a whole like, oh, it's a fun app where you dance and music and all this, but now it's totally gone a whole lot of directions.
To me, it's kind of like Twitter in the video world, except because you have to be really funny. I think then again, I mean, that's just like Vine was, right? And now Vine doesn't really exist anymore.
The video form of Twitter is the best way to describe TikTok.
Cool.
Honestly.
Yeah. You got to be really like short and pithy and like whatever it is that you're going to do. it's impressive. So I totally get why maybe that was a little more than perhaps you bargained for. I don't think I could do it. That's for sure.
Well, we're going to go ahead and get to know you a little bit better, Mason, and how our listeners get to know more about you. So, Rebecca, if you'll do the honors as usual and begin the interview.
Yes, very formal interview. No, we don't try to be formal. But yeah, so, I mean, to start off, honestly, we would just love to know a little bit more about you, like how you grew up, where you grew up, and how you really got into animation.
Yeah, I'm born and raised in North Carolina, probably mostly stayed here my whole life. And I grew up as a Pentecostal Christian. Right now, I kind of identify as non-denominational because I was just doing some, I wouldn't say deconversion, but just understanding like what is truth. And I realized, oh yeah, Christianity is definitely true. So I'm in terms of denominations, I'm just trying to find out like which traditions are authentic to the faith. And I got my love from animation by just from an early childhood. I think I was just drawn to the creativity, the just raw creativity of it, and a lot of the it's just funny and different weird expressive ways to go across an idea that's very specific to animation that I just don't really see anywhere else.
Wow, that's really cool. Yeah, we obviously we see the same thing. We see animation as so unique and able to get across these ideas that perhaps live action doesn't really get to explore. And yeah, to me, there's like a real cohesiveness to a story, particularly when you get into like sci-fi or fantasy or any of that, because it's all the same drawing style. So it looks like it belongs rather, than if you have like live action, which is using CGI, you can pretty easily tell that it's not supposed to be there. And animation just kind of suspends reality, which is really neat. So cool.
It's all funny when you say like CGI too, because like now we're all just watching anime. We're all watching like animation. It's definitely
yeah.
It all circles back to itself.
Yeah, it kind of does. Yeah.
I mean, absolutely, I would agree with that. And as far as like with the type of animation, we here have, in the US, like Western cartoons, what they call that here in the States. And they, it's more slapstick and, some that has moments, but I think anime in terms of like emotion, Mason, you and I were talking a little bit about, the emotional aspect of some anime series where Western cartoons don't really evoke that for me. Like I could watch, say, the animated series of Batman, not shed a tear. You're lying, April. I'll have lots of tissues by the end.
Oh yeah, I can definitely understand what you're talking about. I think the earliest, well, I guess not the earliest, but the latest instance of watching a Western cartoon that made me emotional was the first season of Young Justice. And I don't even watch a lot of superhero cartoons. There was just a dynamic of Superboy, which is the clone, like the son clone of Superman, wanting Superman to be his father figure. And because Superboy was made like without his consent, he just doesn't want to be a part of Superboy's life. And that scenario just hit me hard. I was like,
wow.
Wow.
It's such a good season.
And
we never watched that.
Now, Young Justice, I think I've seen that on like HBO Max or something. Was it a earlier thing, like on Cartoon Network, or how's that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I forget like what year it came out, but I do remember seeing it on like the early days of Cartoon Network. But like back then, I didn't watch any superhero stuff or just shows that had like kind of realistic proportions because that didn't really interest me at the time. But now that I grow up, I'm like, whoa, I missed out.
Some great stuff out there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And to circle back around too about what you said about how you grew up in Pentecostal, if you've been listening, you may know that Josh actually grew up in the Pentecostal church. And then now I don't even know what we are. It doesn't matter. Honestly, I don't think it does. Like the whole denominations, to me, it's more about, okay, are you living out the truths in the Bible and really focusing on that as your starting point, and then finding a church that just you gel with. And no place is perfect. But yeah, for us, we're going to a Calvary Chapel, and they are like really focused on Bible. So if you have one around you, a Calvary Chapel, that may be a great place to start to get some like good Bible teaching. But there's a lot of great churches out there.
Right. I think the whole denominational thing, it kind of boils down to community.
Yeah.
Because everybody has their own theodicies and their own understanding of the scriptures. And I think having those kinds of places, I think denominations was like the earliest forms of people trying to find out their community of trying to find out like which way is the most authentic way to worship the Most High, you know?
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's a really good point. And I think I've said this for a while, but I think the different denominations hone in on different truths that are in the Bible and different truths of what it means to be a Christian. Sometimes they take it maybe a little too far, but I think most of them are representations of who God is, and that's really cool to be able to look at. But yeah.
Okay, I had just one more thing about this. One more thing about the whole denomination thing. When it comes to like a lot of objections to Christianity, and one of the things I hear often is the multiple denominations that is underneath Christianity, the tree of Christianity. And a lot of people think that's a negative, but I personally think that's a positive in a way that there are many ways that we can worship. And I think that I personally think that's amazing. And a lot of them don't really overstep each other's boundaries. It's just different understandings of different ways of following the scriptures.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a great way to say that. And yeah, you're exactly right. We actually had a question going into your webtoon that you created. I'd love for you to tell us just a little bit more about Purgatory Academy and how you came up with the idea to create this story.
I guess it would start in high school, of course. And believe it or not, I really disliked high school. I had a seething hatred for it to the point where
I think we all did a little bit.
Right.
Yeah. I still have a friend that I occasionally talk to, and we had a shared interest in like dark humor, and how we got by our day is just kind of saying jokes like, "Oh man, this school is like purgatory. You like it's like it's never ending. You leave, you get back, and then you're doing the same thing over and over again." And we also had like a shared interest, not only that, a shared interest of shows and music. That ties into the look of the first book of Purgatory Academy. And like the show, the show that we both really liked was Ed, Edd n Eddy, like a Cartoon Network show that aired like way back when. And that's an important thing because there was a fan theory of Ed, Edd n Eddy of like if every kid in the cul-de-sac was in purgatory. And we kind of ran with that. And we thought of an idea of like, what if there was a school that was in purgatory? And as I was like drawing what the show might look like, we both had the same interest in Gorillaz, the virtual band. So I kind of took the art style of like the first phase of like the early 2000 art style of Gorillaz. We didn't really do much for it for about like a year or two throughout high school. But while that was going on, I had a friend. I say had, but he's still alive. We just don't talk to each other anymore. He's an atheist. Last time I checked, and we would have a lot of conversations, a lot of debates about the existence of God. And I still like for many years, I used to still have a lot of conversations with other non-believers about the existence of God. And I would usually ask the question, if the Christian God is true, would you believe? Would you follow him? And I got a lot of no's. like,
wow.
And I was thinking, that's really interesting. And everybody denies God for their own personal reasons. And that kind of gave me inspiration to write the first book of like a lot of young adults my age who unfortunately met an untimely demise, and they are in a facility where they're in a position where they cannot deny the existence of God, and they have 4 years to figure out whether they want to be with him for eternity or not. And the book is just an explanation of understanding people's worldview and like meeting them where they are, and the audience would make the decision of if that conclusion is rational or not. That's a long-winded version of that. I'm sorry about that.
That was great. What are you talking about? That was awesome. Yeah, I love that idea. And I did start reading it. I'm not too far into it, but it was really interesting to see the different questions that are brought up by some of the characters. Like, what are we doing here? What is this all about? Particularly in the beginning, there's a character. I think she's got like part of her head is shaved on the bottom. Yeah. And she had a really interesting point, like when Lucifer came up, and he was the principal of this school, which is so interesting. But she was like, come on, aren't you like the great, what did she say? Like rebellion, like the rebellious one kind of a thing, bumping up against the man, the system. And I thought that was really interesting. I'm guessing that's something that you had kind of heard, or at least that idea from people you had talked to. Is that right?
Something similar to that. Okay. Because the idea of Lucifer running Purgatory Academy, it more or less comes from the idea that came from reading the book of Job, of how Satan completely ruins Job's life with God's permission, might I add. Satan completely ruins Job's life, but in the end, it was for Job to understand that the world is greater than his problems and not to doubt God. Like, this is kind of, I don't know what's the right word for it, an illusion, or I'll just say inspiration for the whole concept of it. And I guess what Susan said, it was more or less a lot of people's objection to what I hear from the book of Job.
Oh, interesting. Like from people who've read it before, or the characters in it, like his friends, Job's friends?
People who read it.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. She's the most interesting character, I think, so far. Just because she's so vocal about everything. But yeah, I look forward to continuing to read it. It's really good.
And before we get too further into the interview, I also want to point out that not only is your comic on Webtoons, book 1 is also available as a hard copy. Am I correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, awesome.
Nice.
It's available on my website right now. I'm trying to get a domain together, but because it's on a third-party website, and trying to say the domain out loud is a pain. But I also have book 2, part 1 out on Amazon right now, which is chapters 1 through 5 of book 2. That includes like extra author's notes and production sketches.
Wonderful.
Just like the first one.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what other projects are you working on right now? Do you have anything else that you're working on?
I am working on the Purgatory Academy game demo. As I said earlier before, I came up with the idea, after I pitched to the show, the Purgatory Academy concept to Adult Swim. And after explaining the show to them, I had the idea that came to me saying, wow, this sounds better as a video game. And now I'm making it in a way.
Nice. Is that like one of the video games? I don't know anything really about video games, except Josh has played these ones where it's like a story, but you make decisions as you go along. Is it like that?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a visual novel meets RPG.
Very cool.
Okay, so yeah, the ones I played like that is if you're familiar with the Life is Strange series, and playing one called Detroit Become Human. I'm still trying to get through that one. So a lot like those is probably what I would equate it to.
Yeah, think of those games, but like a lot of different little mini games in between.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
nice.
Neat.
And the story changes whether you win or lose the mini games.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
So that kind of makes me think of the anime Death Parade, because
yeah,
it's a if for anyone who's not familiar with it, it is a group of people who are basically in this quote unquote purgatory, and when people come down who had died, they play a game that's usually in sets of two, and whoever wins, they get to decide to be reincarnated or to go to hell, basically. But it's all done through like these games, so like darts and an arcade game and pool and all that. So, I mean, interesting to kind of make that correlation.
Yeah, I think I've seen a couple episodes of a Death Parade, so I definitely understand what you're coming from with that.
Not to be confused with Death Note. That's so very different.
Something completely different.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Death Parade is really, really good. I love the beginning song too. That's really fun.
Oh yeah, because it's so happy.
It's so happy and jazzy.
Yeah.
And then the like content of it is so like, woof, it's heavy.
I can't believe I only watched like a couple episodes of it, and I just I completely forgot about Death Parade. Honestly,
I think it's only like 12 episodes. So
I mean, it's a shorter one, so probably
it's good. I just don't know why I didn't finish it.
We had those too. It's like, yeah, we forgot about that.
I know. Does it bother you too when you're watching anime and they have like 13 episodes or 11 episodes and you're like, no, you're 12, 16, 24. This is the number.
I mean, like, I guess because like I watch all my cartoons and all my anime with a friend, and he's really in tune to like the production side of this kind of stuff, and the production side of like making anime and like making cartoons is just complete torture. It's just terrible, and plus it's money reasons, and and like I have another friend who's also really big into like the behind the scenes of producing of all these shows, saying that a lot of the times they would have big budgets and the people in charge of management would pocket a lot of the money and just underpay staff. So I guess the 11 to 12 episode run is inevitable.
Yeah, I get, well, when you look at it that way, there's a lot of not so great things about the industry. I can imagine. Just like a lot of industries, but I don't know why people in general, I think, tend to discount or shortchange artists, either like visual artists, music artists, whatever it is. Like, oh, well, particularly the people who draw. I don't know if you've experienced this, but they're like, well, can't you just like draw something for me? And you're like, no, this is going to be like, $100 just for this little thing. Like, it's a lot of time and effort that goes into that. Does that happen to you?
Yeah, it's really weird. I know art is one of those things that we look at every day, but we see so much of it. We just consume it like candy. We treat it like candy. It's sad where if people like live in a world where there's just no such thing as art, we probably wouldn't have anything, honestly. Because I don't know what I would say, because a lot of engineering is art,
Yeah.
Industrial design, like to make a wheel, someone had to draw that wheel, and that's art.
That's so true. It's everywhere. It's all over the place. Yeah.
Absolutely.
We watch movies, that's art to create that. I mean, honestly, kind of we're just like having a conversation right now, but you could make an argument that creating something like this content for people to consume is also art, So yeah, you're right. It's everywhere. It's hard to get away from it.
It's an art form of entertainment,
Yeah.
Right.
Sometimes people have it down to a science, but people are very fickle.
Yes, they are. They are indeed. Yeah, and I'd love to hear a little bit more too about we've talked a little bit about already, but what are some of your inspirations for your stories and this game and other things like that that you create, even for your YouTube channel?
I have too much to list. When a thing about me is usually I don't have a favorite anything. I just have something that I'm into at the moment. And then everything that I do is a copy of that, or just a mix mash of things that I do like kind of like in book 2 of Purgatory Academy. The reason why it's taking so long is because I was inspired by the writing of Ichiro Oda's One Piece. And if you know anything about One Piece, it's a 20-year long story and it's still going. and I was inspired by, in terms of art, I changed from the flat early 2000s style to more of a style that mimics Berserk, the manga. And that manga is too detailed, but I still go. That's my standard anyway. So I'm just sweating for my art right now. In terms of the game, I think I have a lot of inspirations when it comes to like indie, when I'm drawing from like indie stuff, or like there's this game that I was interested in called 3 out of 10, which promotes itself as a video game sitcom, where it's literally just a sitcom, but like bits and pieces of mini games sprinkled between everything. And that's what my main inspiration for the game was. But I'm just adding my own little bits and pieces to make my thing unique. Interested in the world of Yakuza, or just the world of Yakuza. And one of the things that I liked about Yakuza was how there was a mini game, literally, or not a mini game, but a side story at every corner of the map. Like, it really made it feel like a game world that was alive. And I guess for my YouTube, I do not have an inspiration. I'm just trying to make content and put it out there for my YouTube. So it's kind of aimless right now, unfortunately.
Well, sometimes when you're trying to get your work out there into like so many facets, sometimes you do have to take a quote unquote aimless approach and kind of just, throw it at the wall, see what sticks, and what people are receptive to. You said that you didn't have a favorite anything. Would this still apply to this last question, which is, what is your favorite anime or manga, or what are you currently into?
Okay, so take what I just said and throw it out the window.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Right. So here's a list of my favorite stuff. I do like One Piece, which is an obvious thing. That's my favorite anime right now. I mean, I jumped to the manga because there was just one arc that was just going on forever, and I was just like, and I think I caught up to the anime, so I just decided to catch up with the manga. That's like the only instance of me doing that ever with any show. Another anime would be Trigun. I like Trigun so much because it has the philosophy of the extent of pacifism. Well, like what will you do for the extent of pacifism? And Hunter x Hunter, that's my third favorite.
Now, I've seen like Hunter x Hunter on like the title and everything on like Crunchyroll. I haven't got into it. Would you recommend it as far as like a good anime to kind of watch?
Well, yeah, I said he was one of his favorites.
Yeah.
Okay.
Josh.
Yeah. Nah, I don't.
Okay. Okay. All right. Obviously, yes. Okay.
There's one thing in the anime that made like a serious blunder that makes sense in the manga, but it's still pretty good nonetheless.
Nice. What is Hunter x Hunter about?
Hunter x Hunter, well, the anime is about a kid named Gon who grew up with his aunt, and he wants to become a hunter like his dad. And a hunter is essentially a adventurer. They're essentially an adventurer that they can go around the world and explore the depths of the unknown. And they get the government's backing. And the whole story just revolves around him trying to find his dad, while with every step he gets closer to his dad is like another step up ahead of him, like trying to separate himself from Gon. While on the way he meets a colorful cast of people like a Killua, who is the youngest of a family of assassins who doesn't want to be an assassin. He's like a gifted child. He's good at what he does, but he wants to be more than like his family ties. Another one is Kurapika, who's the last of his family. Think about Sasuke of like Naruto. And he wants to avenge the group of people who massacred his family. And then you have Leodio, who wants to become a hunter to get a lot of money, and he's a doctor. So
interesting, very interesting.
So we'll certainly have to check that out.
Yeah,
it's a solid one.
Yeah, it sounds really interesting, particularly the description of Gon and his dad, the relationship with his dad, and how his dad seems to be running away from him. It just makes me think, or trying to avoid him. Is that true?
Like every time he gets close to his dad leaves him a note basically saying, "Oh, you almost got me, but you're not ready."
Interesting. Yeah, it sounds maybe a little more playful than what I was thinking. But
you're gonna hate his dad if you watch it.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking about how it sounds like that relationship is the absolute antithesis of our relationship with God, because God runs towards us, not away from us. And how sad to have that kind of a relationship with an earthly father, but our heavenly Father isn't at all like that, which is so wonderful.
Absolutely. But what's so weird is that Gon, he still loves his dad. Like after, like he says, it's the complete antithesis. Yeah. While like man doesn't always love God, sometimes just rejects God. Gon, he just loves his dad, no matter like how many times his dad tries to get away from him, or just feels like he's not ready to see him. But things do turn out well.
It's good. So there is hope.
There is hope.
Yay.
There are twists and turns.
Good.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, with that, I think we'll get into our topic today. Again, talking about anime and manga. This leads right up to the choice that Mason suggested for this episode. So, Mason, will you do the honors and tell our audience what we will be talking about today?
What we'll be talking about today is Attack on Titan.
This show has been going on for quite some time, and we are really excited to talk about it. We started, it was, I think a couple years after the first season had premiered, and your sister and her husband, they actually suggested it, right?
Well, they did, but I actually watched it back in 2020. 2012.
Oh, you were still living with
2013.
your old roommate at that point.
Yes, my roommate, who actually was the one to get me into anime. This was the first thing she was watching that I saw her, and I was like,
Whoa,
ooh, what is this?
What a way to start.
I know, this is how I started off my anime journey. Whew. Yeah, it was a rough one.
So, to give a brief synopsis for those of you who aren't familiar with what Attack on Titan is, again, I'll give you a brief synopsis. Attack on Titan is a world where humanity lives inside cities surrounded by 3 enormous walls that protect them from the gigantic man-eating humanoids referred to as Titans. The story follows Eren Yeager and a whole slew of others who vow to exterminate the Titans after a Titan has brought about destruction to many, many, many civilizations. That is the basis for our discussion today. So with the Attack on Titan, as far as the points that we want to make sure to include, Titans or giants as they're referred to in a biblical sense, and also the character of Eren Yeager.
Okay, we were talking, I think, before we started recording about how far we are into the series. We are in season 3, which is the last season. Where are you, Mason?
What is the season 4?
4?
So,
are we? Oh, whatever.
Wait,
whatever the last one
check.
is.
Yeah, it's called the final season.
Yeah.
It's season 4 is called the final season, and that's even in parts. So that's weird.
Right. Yeah. Josh told me that, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, and he was like, yeah, they're actually going to make another season. I was like, but this is the final season.
Well, part of, another arc.
Hey, it's good. So, anyway, point being, where are you in the series?
I'm just 3 episodes shy of being caught up completely.
Oh man. Okay. So you're a little further along actually than we are, because we haven't caught up in a little bit. I want to say we've missed the past, maybe 5 or 6 episodes. I think it's been a little bit since we've gone back to it. Well, good. Okay. So we're all basically on the same page then with where we are in the show. So that's good.
Okay.
Yeah. Josh had said something about like you had just started watching it, and I was like, ooh, okay. So that means that like, we're just talking about season 1. Okay, forget everything you know, because there's so much that comes out, so much information. But yay, I'm glad we can kind of talk about all of it.
I blow through anime real quick, especially if it's dubbed.
Oh yeah, you can really easily go through all of that, and they're pretty short episodes. Once you realize they're only like 20 minutes long, right?
20. Yeah. I think for me, it was like when I'm so used to like American cartoons, and American cartoons are usually like 11 minutes.
True.
And that's like you said, like 20 minutes is pretty short. And I'm like, what? Yeah. I guess I'm just it's different. I know anime has like a whole different thing going over there in Japan when it comes to run times. But,
right. So different. So different. Yeah. And also, listeners, everyone else, if you have not watched Attack on Titan and you plan to in the future, I would imagine we are going to say spoilers. So here's your warning. We're probably going to give away some important things. Disclaimer for all.
So getting into Attack on Titan, Rebecca, now you kind of urged me to like start this with you.
Yeah, because it's great.
It is great, and I was a little bit, I guess, I wouldn't say apprehensive, but I guess just a little bit cautious about starting it, because I wasn't really into like anime like Attack on Titan at that point. But when I started watching it, I was like, well, why haven't I started this sooner?
Yeah, I did urge you to watch it. Like, it's really, really good. I think you were watching a lot of Slice of Life at that time. And I was like,
you were not about
Slice
that.
of Life.
No.
Now Slice of Life, it's okay. But
moderation.
Yeah. Yeah. And now you're hooked, right?
Yes, absolutely. So get into kind of like the discussion here regarding this series. Now, let's talk about the giants of old, or the quote unquote the OGs.
What are you talking about? Are you talking about the biblical giants?
Yes,
okay.
yes.
I was like, where are you going with this? Yeah, the Nephilim, be the giants of the Old Testament, which are, if I'm remembering correctly, they are the offspring of fallen angels and humans on the earth, which is such a weird concept. But they were giants, apparently.
And this also comes from, as far as like your reference point, this comes to us because the Nephilim are mentioned in Genesis 6 and Numbers 13. So in Genesis, it's all like before, the flood and everything. And Goliath, wouldn't he be considered as a Nephilim?
Yeah, I think he had like the Nephilim blood in him, and that because it was like dying out, I think, throughout the generations, and he was one of the last ones. I think that's right. Do you remember, Mason?
I think the last time I read about something pertaining to the story was Malcolm Gladwell's Fight David and Goliath. It's a book about how people can use their enemies' strength use their strength as their weakness, essentially. And the book was talking about how the way the Bible described Goliath describes a man that was very big in stature. However, because he was big in stature, he had a terrible sense of defense. And people think taking him down with a slingshot was like a little kid's toy, but no. If you look back at how slingshots was used in ancient military, they were accurate, deadly weapons. And plus, the way they described Goliath, he sounded like he had a lot of disadvantages to his stature. He was a giant, though. He was a huge man.
Yeah, I want to say he was like 10 feet tall or like 9 feet something. I don't remember. But yeah, I don't know if you've seen too, the slingshot that David would have used at the time. We think of the ones that look like a wishbone or like a Y, and then you like pull back the stone in that like Y bit. But his sling would have been almost like a little pouch and then two really long strings. And he would have like swung that thing around in circles and then let one of the sides go, and that rock would go flying. And you could seriously shoot a rock really, really far with that kind of a slingshot. So this was a weapon for sure.
Absolutely.
So getting into, jumping in from the Nephilim to the Titans now.
You mean in Attack on Titan?
In Attack on Titan, yes.
Okay, I was like, we don't have giants now.
Yes, sorry. Yeah, if you see a giant, just everyday passing.
You still have Shaquille O'Neal.
You do. So in Attack on Titan, we see in the early seasons, so season 1, where scouts are being trained and told about, what Titans are, what's their motivation, kind of like their build, their structure, and what they feed off of. So the thing is, these Titans are not driven by, hunger. Yes, they feed on humans, but the whole end game for them is just they're in it for the kill. They're in the game of killing. And gosh, that is like really hard to like just, you're in episode like 4 at this point, and it's already getting so deep and so dark.
Oh, I know. Yeah. Don't get attached to anyone. I've said that before, but
yes,
no one.
No
one is safe from harm.
There were so many times where I thought Aaron was a goner.
Oh, yeah.
Like, just so many near misses.
Mm-hmm. And he comes back.
In stride, and as a Titan, no less. Mm-hmm. And for Aaron, it comes out in the first season, kind of in the middle, towards the end, that he's basically the key, or at least a big clue, in how to basically bring back the freedom from these Titans for everyone. And Aaron's kind of portrayed as the quote-unquote Christ figure or savior for everyone, for the scouts, for citizens in different towns and everything. And that's a lot of pressure to put on. Like, one kid is not that bright.
He's got a lot of spunk, though.
He does.
He's like perpetually angry.
Yeah.
Particularly if you listen to the dub. I don't think I've listened to the sub one.
Like, he has a visceral voice when he turns Titan. And I was like I was like listening to it on my speakers, and I was like toning it down. I was like, I don't want anybody thinking I'm listening to anything satanic or nothing. But I was like, it's intense.
Yes, that voice is just
Yeah, his scream, the like that one's crazy. Yeah, it's and talking about the whole like David and Goliath story, that's really interesting. Because it is kind of what these characters are doing, right? The scouts and the and everybody fighting the Titans. It's very much like David and Goliath, I think, using their strength against them. Where's their weak point? It's the back of their neck. And so, yeah, I thought that was a really interesting correlation that you made there, Mason.
Absolutely. I kind of had my thought of like who the Christ-like figure is in Attack on Titan.
Okay, yeah.
This might be like a little spoiler-ish type deal, but I do not see Aaron as a Christ-like figure. And he is the main guy that the story follows, but I don't see him as a Christ-like figure because the way the story is kind of set up, it's set up in a way where they don't really need Aaron at all. To the point where Aaron's motivation isn't really throughout the anime, it's not really to save everybody, it's to kill the Titans.
Yeah.
Like it's he's driven by hatred.
Yeah.
Well, his motive, like, he wants to protect his friends, but he used hatred as the fuel to get where he needs to go. And that goes all the way to like the final season. And I don't remember the last arc you're in, but like the final season goes like really. I guess I'll preface this by saying, are you aware of the civilization outside of the city?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay,
we're in that.
Okay, so you already seen like how he took over.
Right.
Yeah. So the way, like, what he did over there, that was the show really tries to frame him as no better than the people that he hated. Even when he was talking to I forgot his name, I'm sorry, the guy that was the armored Titan, he was saying, yeah, I still remember the day that you took over my city. I don't feel any ill will towards you or your people, but like, you guys kind of threatened war on my people. So like, it's war, what you gonna do?
Yeah. I think it's a really interesting, I think more than one person being a savior. I know it's strange for me to disagree with you, Josh.
But no. Like, I guess because I came across a lot of like studies and articles that were painting Eren Yeager as like a Christ-like figure.
I mean, depending on how far you are in the series.
Correct. Like, if you're
possibly.
If you're just starting out, then maybe. I guess what I was trying to think is like early on, people are, he's seen as, the key, to all this.
I see that. Yeah.
I think that's where
I see where you're coming from.
I think that's where I was trying to paint the Christ-like or the savior type of thing. But I'm very interested to know who you think the Christ-like figure is, Mason.
It's Sasha's dad.
Kind of elaborate on that.
He is not a Messiah figure, but he is the closest thing to a follower of Christ in the show. So like, because that's that's where my mind came from, like with anything that's virtually Christ-like in the show. Because like I said, I don't know like how far you guys are, but in the final season, Gabby kills Sasha.
Yeah.
Right. And she finds herself in the orphanage of Sasha's parents. where she meets Sasha's dad and Sasha's mom, and they are the most loving people.
Okay. Nice. Yeah, we
that they
haven't
came
quite
across.
gotten that far. I think we
Like-
know that she goes to the orphanage or something, but haven't quite gotten to that relationship that builds up. So that'll be interesting to see once we get there.
Events that leads up to them finding out who killed Sasha, like Sasha's father displays the most incredible amount of love to her, and that kind of got me thinking, like a scene after they everybody found out, well, Sasha's family found out who killed her, which was Gabby. This is kind of on topic, kind of not, but a scene after, everybody kind of made amends with each other, except everybody kind of most people made amends with each other, and they were just reminiscing on the world like falling down around them as like the times just keep pouring in and pouring in. Gabby has a conversation with a guy that Sasha was in love with. Well, the Sasha was like in love with or fancied, and they're questioning. They were just questioning, talking about each other, that we are going to war. We're constantly in war. And they realized just fighting back is just a natural retaliation. And they just think to each other, how are we going to stop this? And my answer was like, it is Christ. I was like, because like watching the final season and seeing what Aaron does, the show mostly tells a story about the raw nature of power. Because as you can see, is the civilization outside of the island. I forgot the name of the civilization outside the island.
It's the Marlians, I think.
The Marlians,
or at least that's like their race or whatever. But and the Eldians. That's all I got.
I think the Elvians are like the race of people that are like Aaron, and the people can transform to Titans. The Marlians, I believe, are the people that treats the Elvians like the Jews in World War II. And like going back to the thing about like the nature of war, it really shows in like the whole lore of the story of how the Marlians basically overpowers the Elvians just because they are afraid of their power. They are weak, but they're cunning, because they are afraid that the Elvians are going to overuse their raw strength for their military. And when they don't need them anymore for their military, they'll just toss them out and just genocide them because they're just too powerful a force to leave be. Aaron wants to fight back, and that's just the natural order of things. There's no such thing as balance for people who do not have a standard of peace, of living together. All you have is two sides wanting to one up each other until we're all gone. And I'm like, this is why we need Christ. If Attack on Titan says anything, this is a story warning us of what our world can be, or what our world will be without Christ.
Yeah, I would agree. It's like, it shows the depravity of humanity. Certainly.
Absolutely.
I mean, because we're all just, if we were in the situation with what Attack on Titan is displaying and illustrating, we're all just at odds with each other, trying to, again, as Mason said, one up each other, destroy each other until there's nothing left. I mean, yeah, that's a scary reality, and in some places that is happening.
Right. It's not like it's an uncommon thing, unfortunately. And yeah, it does show, the results of the fall of man in the garden, and that sin, and it really rules our lives. Without Christ, sin rules our lives, and we really can't make any good choices. People think they can make good choices and be moral individuals, but without Christ, there is no salvation, no true salvation.
And I kind of just want to add like one more thing where, in a way, the show didn't treat Aaron like a Christ-like figure, but Aaron treated him, like later in the season, the final season, he treated himself as a Christ-like figure, where he put it on himself to not just save his friends, but his people, who are no better than like the Marlins who oppressed his people. It was mostly about him wanting to save his people from the entire world who deems his people as a threat.
Yeah. What a tough spot to be in his position, you know?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Especially for both sides.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Because like his friends are like, I'm sorry, I'm getting, I don't want to spoil it. It gets so crazy. It gets so crazy. Everybody kind of finds themselves in like these weird ultimatums where just like in a world where everybody has their own reasons for doing one thing or another. Where like the initial thing is bad, but their retaliation is understandable, but it's still bad.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, you can't fight fire with fire. It's like the Old Testament way of saying, you know, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. That was the old law. It's the old covenant way of doing things. Yeah. And I loved being able to see. So for the first, I guess, 3 seasons, we were able to see it was everything from Aaron's perspective, and that what we now know is the island of one little group of people, everything from their perspective. But I love then being able to jump over into the Marlians and the Eldians and see life from their perspective and where Rhina and Bertolt and Annie, they all came from. And you saw the enemy in a different light. And I think that's really important for us as people to do, because yeah, we may have our own personal like enemy that in the world, someone else that we don't like, or we think they're just making terrible decisions, whatever it is. And life from their perspective is different.
Yeah, I think there was like a line that both the Aaron and the Armored Titan, I keep forgetting his name, I'm sorry.
Rhina.
Rhina.
Yeah.
Like Rhina was like the first one who said, like, when I was outside of their walls, they were the enemy, but when I was inside, they were just people. But he still like killed them all, like anyway.
Right.
Like both of them did. but it was an understanding of like of what I said previously. It's just the nature of power and the nature of living in a world of people who do not know Christ.
Yeah, for sure.
And kind of a quick aside from because you mentioned like inside, outside the walls. When we see this a lot in different animations, because we've discussed a few where walls are so heavily focused on, because again they are regarding a sense of protection. Again, we had this with the book of the Secret of Kells. Again, trying to build up and maintain the wall. Wolfwalkers, so it was named by the same company that did Secret of Kells. Again, stay inside the wall. You don't need to be outside. And Aaron says something to the effect of when he wants to join the Scouts. So we see in kind of the first couple of episodes where his father says to him, "Listen, you don't know what's out there." And he's mentioned, it's like, you think that I'm stupid. I know there's death. I know there's destruction. I know there's bad things out there. But why should we just be complacent to stay inside the walls? Because if we don't do something, I'm going to have to stay in this nightmare. So he feels basically like trapped in this complacency. And I think that's
Aaron or Aaron's dad?
Aaron.
Okay, that's what I thought.
And I think that's how what we do is sometimes we build up these walls around ourselves for whatever reason, again, to protect us, because, we've been hurt or other people have hurt us. And we just get so complacent that we don't ever, bring those walls down to, people or things that could help us, or, again, the ultimate helper.
I think you made up a really extraordinary point, is because they touch on that in the show as well. Because the only religion in Attack on Titan are cultists who worship the walls.
Yes.
They treat the walls like goddesses. So, like, I think you touched on it like spectacularly, and I just thought like, oh yeah, they do worship the walls within, and the walls have titans in it.
Right.
So.
I mean, a wall is a great thing until until the invasion.
True. Yeah, it's interesting. And I think like you said, the church that worships the walls, I don't remember what they were called, but they knew the secrets, or at least some of them. They knew that the walls were made up of titans. And I think we were rewatching one of the episodes, and they were doing one of their prayers, the people that were in the church. And they said something about and bless the founder who has kept us safe or something. So, and that I think was the first king, right? That's Aaron's Titan. So like they knew a little bit about.
That's going to spoiler territory.
Oh, okay.
Well, they talk about who the founder is.
Okay, so it's maybe a little different. Well, we'll stop there then.
Yeah.
They know more than they're letting on. At least we know that from where we are.
So we're getting to the point where I would like to discuss just our personal favorites and intrigues about the show as we're getting to kind of like our recommendations. So Mason, if you'll go ahead and start us off, what do you really like about, aside from what we've already talked about, what draws you to Attack on Titan? What are your favorite things that you like about it?
For me, getting into like interested in any show, it has to have a solid understanding of like what it wants to say, the philosophies behind it. Is it trying to like what is the anime trying to say, and is it really a thought-provoking thing that'll make you think about it after watching it? And I think Attack on Titan is one of those animes that will have you thinking about it time and time again. And I think the complexities of like every side is understandable, and everything has like an upside and a downside, where you will always find somebody with a different opinion of every character's actions within the show. And I think the whole complexity of all the characters and like how well thought out the story is, where it just grips you with action at first, but then it turns into a mystery. Like it tricks everybody. Nobody ever thought that this was going to be a mystery show. like everybody was like, oh, I just want to see some really cool animations with people just flying around like Spider-Man with sword, samurai Spider-Man, just beating up giant naked people. But I wasn't interested in a mystery, but the complexity is what really drew me in.
Yeah, I'd probably have to agree with that. And like you said, the character development in this is really, really good. I love the character development. While we were kind of prepping for today's conversation, we were rewatching a couple of episodes from season 1 and looking at Armin in particular and how he saw himself so differently than his friends did. And you could see like the first half of season 1, he was very, very unsure of himself. And then there's a change around, I think it was episode like 10, where all of a sudden he's like, oh, you guys don't see me the way that I see me, that I'm a burden and I'm not important to the group. I could be gone and it would be fine. But his friends really rely on him to persuade everyone to like, don't kill Aaron.
Right.
And that only grows as the time goes on in the show, and he becomes a real leader with really good strategic things. And Aaron, that's really cool.
Aaron comes up. It's when Aaron comes up to him again, asking Arlen, hey, you need to, be really, plead the case to why, I should, for them to not kill me. And he says Arlen says to Aaron, well, why are you entrusting me with this big responsibility? Why would you? It's like, well, because you have a level head. You're this, you're that.
Yeah. I think one more thing that what you mentioned was like the progression, because there's a progression inside the intros, because at first it has that German chant that gets everybody hyped to like fight
Yes.
for country, you know, and like everybody's so hyped to be a soldier. But as the new intros go on, it gets darker. It comes from I want to be a soldier to fight for my country to there's a lot of death and fighting to wow, my country's not really great to soldiers are just pawns and people are dying for no reason to the intro that we have now where it's the ultimatum, you know.
Yeah, that's a great point about the openings that you see. You're exactly right. It does they take you on a journey of where the characters are and their understanding. And then the one I've been obsessed with recently is My War, which is such a good opening. I love it. But yeah, you're it makes me think of it even has like the soldiers marching like
that's my favorite one too.
Yeah, it's so good with like the color drops and everything.
It gets less and less colorful as like the intros go.
Yeah, it's really, really interesting. Your correlation too between the Germans and the Nazis in World War II, that was really interesting because that's exactly what it's like, particularly as you get to know the Marlians and the Eldians. Like
both of you have said, I would have to say, again, the complexity is what draws me in. Going thinking it's one thing, hey, surprise. And just the characters themselves, the main trio, which are, again, Armin, Aaron, and Mikasa.
I'd say Mikasa's like the least character development, unless I'm just like not remembering her character development. She's just kind of the same. She's kind of a badass.
I've heard, I've heard they like the manga fleshed her out a lot, but the anime cut it due to like pacing reasons.
Okay.
Interesting.
I mean, that's what I've heard, but
that would make sense because of all the other characters are very well developed. So it is kind of surprising that Mikasa isn't in the anime anyway. So perhaps that is true.
There's a lot of characters and a lot of characters that die, but pacing is king at the end of the day.
Yes. Yeah. That's what will kind of make or break a story, I think, for sure.
Well, let's go ahead and get on to our recommendations. Again, we usually do this on a scale of 1 to 10. With Attack on Titan, where we are currently, I'm going to go ahead and say 10 out of 10.
Wow. That's high. Goodness. I'm surprised, Josh, actually.
Well, I told you I was trying to be conservative my last few ones, but when I really like something, I really think it's good.
Apparently. That's got me great. I love it too. For me, I would say it's on up there. It's an 8 or a 9 for me. I try not to give hardly anything a 10 because, I mean, there might be that one that's just like blown out of the water. It's a 10, like Demon Slayer.
Like if something is a 10 for me, that means like it changed my life. It changed how I think about things forever. But this, it's definitely it's not a 7. I'd say it's an 8. It's a solid 8 or a 9. I'd say about that. It's like an 8. Cause like I would have to be obsessed with it. If it's a 9, I would say it's an 8.
Right.
Yeah. That's a great way to look at it. I used to have such a hard time with these like number things. When we started this, I was like, Josh, I don't want to do number recommendations. That's so hard.
Well, I thought about doing like a Halo system. It's like, all right, so on this we give it 3 Halos or something like that.
Half a Halo?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Yeah. In terms of Christianity, safe for the family, we give half a Halo.
In terms of, I mean, hey, it shows what the world is like without Christ.
Right?
So that's a pretty good horror story right there.
So. True.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we'll do a different type of rating system in the future. Well, we want to thank our guest, Mason McKinney, for joining us today, talking about Attack on Titan. His webtoon, Purgatory Academy, is available that you can go ahead and read that. And Mason, if people want to find you in regards to social media, where can they find you?
I'm on Instagram at Masonimous, Mason. Inous. Yeah. IMOUS. I'm sorry. Then I have my Twitter where I post updates on my game, where it's at PURG_Academy. And my TikTok has the same handle. And I believe it's Masonimous as well for my YouTube. Oh yeah, I'm also on Amazon. So just look up Mason McKinney on Amazon.
All right. Awesome.
Nice.
Well, with that, everybody, we thank you for listening, and we will see you all next week.
Bye, everybody. Thank you for listening to the Anilujah podcast. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to keep up with all the latest information. We would love to hear your comments and questions about today's episode, as well as suggestions for future episodes. You can message us on our socials or email us at contact@anilujah.com.